Welcome back to Capital Review. We're still talking to UNICEF spokesperson Toby who's on the ground in Ukraine. Toby, talk to us a little bit about where you're at right now.
Yeah, so right now I'm in a town called Vinnytsia, which is about 360 kilometers sort of to the east of Lviv. And I've actually just come from Zaporizhzhia, which is a town sort of much closer to some of the front lines in the southeast of Ukraine. And what we saw there was we went to a transit center, which is actually set up in the car park of a massive shopping mall. So people who are arriving there are people who have just literally got out of areas where there's heavy fighting, and they're receiving immediate support as they arrive. So they're coming into a tent, they're receiving some sort of hot drinks, some food, and UNICEF is distributing some blankets and providing some child protection support there. But we also met children who arrived, a 9-year-old arrived, and they basically had been driving literally through trying to escape an area where the fighting had intensified over the last few days. And obviously you can imagine the trauma that those children went through trying to get through some of the checkpoints, trying to avoid the fighting. And then they arrive at this shopping center where the authorities are providing excellent support and UNICEF is helping there. And there's also a first aid station where they've been treating shrapnel wounds, bullet wounds before moving those children or adults onto more specialized care when necessary. With people still coming out of those areas in a bad state, cars that are very battered from the fighting even in some cases. And we're doing what we can to at least provide some relief in those spots to support children as best we can before they move on to their next destination. And most people are looking for areas through friends or through relatives that they can go to safer areas in Ukraine, normally in the western part of the country.
And Toby, what are you learning and what are you hearing from your colleagues about what's happening in Bucha or what happened in Bucha?
Yeah, well, it's very hard to say. I don't have a lot of information about Bucha, but obviously the UN, the human rights side of the UN are looking into that, and I'm sure there'll be sort of work going on around the situation in Bucha. And what is horrific is just the protection of children across Ukraine in areas where there's heavy fighting. And that's Bucha, that's Mariupol, those areas, we still have children stuck in those areas. And those children need to urgently get out. We need to get some access to get humanitarian relief in. And essentially what they really need is an end to the fighting. We need a ceasefire, we need a peace, so that this horror for children can be over.
And Toby, you're there. What do you see that Ukrainians need right now?
Well, I think the support for Ukraine to UNICEF, to other organizations has been amazing. The response from individuals, from donors has been fantastic. And that's enabling us to scale up our response. So it's enabling us to move supplies across the country, medical supplies, hygiene kits, even early childhood development kits, to move them into areas where the most vulnerable children are, and that's displaced children, but it's also children in areas where there's more sort of active fighting. And that response from donors, from individuals, is also enabling us to set up child protection teams. So we have mobile child protection teams in some areas who can reach children to provide immediate emotional and psychosocial support. And it's absolutely critical that we keep getting that support from donors, because it enables us to reach more children. It enables UNICEF to reach more areas as well. And we're extremely grateful for what has been received so far.
And Toby, for those who are watching this right now, what can Americans do to help?
Well, I think the donations to organizations like UNICEF, but also other organizations working across Ukraine, are absolutely critical, because they can enable a response that gets to scale. So we reach more children with critical life-saving supplies, and also with the emotional support, tackling the trauma that is so massive across the child population in Ukraine, children who've been exposed to some of the real horrors of war.
All right, UNICEF spokesperson Toby, thank you so much again for being here, and please stay safe in Ukraine. You're watching Capital Review.